So,
Hi everyone, Thursday night, 9 o'clock. It's time for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. Hope you enjoyed the new promo for the show there. Just playing thanks to Kyle for sorting that out for us, but something a little bit different at the start of the show. And looking forward to another weekend of Six Nations. We had a very successful week last week. We've got last week's guest back on the show, and that's Thoughts on Sports. And let's introduce him straight away. Neil, good to have you back on. Another cracking weekend of rugby ahead.
No, Brent, over the moon to be back on the show. Can't turn it down. 2 weeks running, crack over weekend last weekend, and looking to build on that form this week.
Excellent. And he sent us a video last week. He also had a very successful week of punting. And Jordan, one half of Son of a Punt, great to welcome you back onto the show.
Thanks, Brent. It felt like I've just came on to What a Week on Supersport Blitz. You know, What a Week, and they play all that music, and I've just entered the studio. But yeah, good to be back, and looking forward to another successful weekend this weekend coming.
Excellent. Well, we've got plenty of Six Nations to talk about. I know you boys love your Gallagher Premiership, so we'll get into that as well. And at the end of the show, we'll talk about Super Rugby, particular Super Rugby AU. We've got some handicaps out. That gets going next week. So from next week, the show is really going to start getting busy with Super Rugby. I've got to just make one announcement here. It's not related to betting and should not be related to betting at all, but the big announcement today that rugby is starting up again at an amateur level in South Africa, admittedly non-contact initially, but if all goes according to plan, my son could be playing rugby again by about April the 17th, which I can tell you what will be one incredible win. The next obstacle, of course, for me to get over was I bet you they're going to start them playing and say no spectators are allowed. But there's going to be a ways and means for me to go and watch that game. I can promise you guys that right now there's absolutely not a chance you're going to keep me out. But we'll get cracking straight into the games. And I'm taking the prices from Sunbet tonight, gents, but you can mention whatever you see in the handicap. I know there's a bit of variety on this game. England opened minus 39.5. There's generally been some money for Italy this week. This is at Sunbet 35.5. I know there is some 37.5. I think I saw it World Sports Betting. And let's start with you there, Neil. What are your thoughts on this one? It's a big handicap, but Italy were beaten by 40 last week. Was it 50? No, they were beaten by 40 by France.
Yeah, Brent, big handicap, but it's not like we didn't expect that. I think anything under 30 would definitely sort of bring in the minus punters. And as soon as you start drifting past the 35 and a half or 34 and a half region, I'm definitely in the plus in Italy. Not my most confident bet in the weekend. I think if Italy, if ever, is your most confident punt, you should probably look at all the markets again, because there's definitely better value. So yeah, I'll be definitely siding with an Italian plus. I just think that they haven't. I think in the last 7 games that they've played between Italy and England, they've only lost this cap once in the last 7 fixtures. I know that they are fielding a young side, but I do expect a big bounce back from Franco Smith. A market I'll definitely be having a look at is over Italian points. I watched a bit of the game last weekend, and Italy were quite enterprising with ball in hand. Yes, they did take an absolute walloping, but I think they ended up ahead in the territory and possession stats. So I think that if a couple more passes stick this weekend, I think they wouldn't be surprised to see a fast start, maybe score the first pen on the board. I'll be looking at sort of an Italy over 10, over 11.5 if I can get that. Once again, not the biggest of strike, but just some nice Saturday interests.
Well, we could probably work it out from that total points line there. Jordan, we've got 54.5 total points. England up against Italy in the 35.5 handicap. Have you had any early involvement?
No early involvement, but as Neil alluded to, it's certainly a big handicap. And as soon as you're on the north side of 35, it's really tough to take a minus. It's going to be decent weather at Twickenham, and there's an X7's ref on the whistle, Mike Adamson. So hopefully he'll try ref a fast game. But as Neil said, I think Italy play quite a nice brand of rugby when they get the opportunity. So I think they're going to give England a proper go. I don't think that necessarily means they will be successful in it, but I think they'll give England a good go. I saw an interesting stat from Russ Petty on Twitter, and it was England versus Italy stats, first half stats versus second half stats from 2016 onwards. And basically, I'll just quickly read them to you. Actually, I'll just summarize it. In the last 6 encounters, it's been 83-41 to England in first halves. And in second halves, it's been 167-17. So it just shows that Italy, they do come to play. They generally hang around for 40 minutes. And yeah, so I mean, instead of like looking at an overs points, I might look for like, the best first half plus. I can get maybe like if I can get a plus 18 or plus 19, you would really think that, if you get 3 points or even 6 points, you should be safe as houses there. And I mean, as Neil said, like I can see Italy getting on the scoreboard here. So that's definitely a play just based on stats that I'll be looking at for sure. But it's not a game I'm going to get too invested in either.
Excellent. Before I go back to Neil there, first of all, just a shout out to you. I think you were the one who called that under 5.5 tries last week in the England-Scotland game. You were on that very quickly. And that was one of the reasons why I managed to have a profitable weekend. And then back to you, Neil. I think, first of all, there's around 9.5 Italy points. I assume you'll be an overs there. And also just touching on the England game last week, you were strong on the Scotland plus. I think you got 17.5 early in the week. And then in the end, sort of went again on the show at 15.5. And what a great performance by them. But England, well, I suppose I'll be looking to bounce back.
No, big time, Brent. But as long as sort of Eddie's sides of the Saracens have had minimal game time, even Saracens are having sort of a tough time in this three-way comp that they're involved in. I think it's with Doncaster Knights and Erling Trailfinders. They're having a tough time there. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the Sarries boys representing England at the moment. Just undercooked for game time. They're sort of just, I think they're taking a lot for granted with just pulling on the jersey, just rocking up at Twickenham. They don't have the home fans to sort of edge them on. So with that in mind, I think with Italy at 9.5 points, I think this has also arrived in 6 out of the last 7 games between Italy and England at Twickenham. The only time it didn't arrive was, I think it was 2 fixtures ago where England won 37-zip, and I think the conditions were quite poor for that, so kept them scoreless. So at Italy over 9.5, I'll definitely take it. And I'll also have a nibble at Italy over 3.5 first half points. That's 2 pens, quite easy to obtain, or a singular try, and I can easily see that happening. Once again, won't be my biggest player of the weekend, but it's definitely worth some interest.
So welcome to all the guys in our live chatting, including Shane, one of our viewers from Dublin. I'm sure Dave will be coming in soon. He normally watches on Facebook, also based there in Dublin, and a nice weather report there. It's one thing all us punters want. We want connections all around the world for weather reports. There's nothing better than that report 20 minutes before kickoff to tell you exactly what is happening with the weather. Let's move on to the next game, though, and I'm going to start with Jordan on this one. Jordan, let's move on to Scotland up against Wales. This handicap has been fairly stable. I saw it's a -3.5. I think it opened Scotland, so there hasn't been a lot of movement. We don't often get a big movement in Six Nations handicaps. It's not like Super Rugby and Curry Cups and that where we'll get massive swings. So normally the bookies have done their homework by the time they price up. Here we got -4.5, and from what I can tell on the Good for the Game forum and the odd WhatsApp group and that, the sentiment seems to be leaning towards Scotland here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the sentiment leans towards Scotland, especially off the news that Wales are going to be missing Lydiate, Thomas Williams, Johnny Williams, Hallam Amos, Josh Navidi, and I think North as well. So if North is also missing, that's obviously massive. And then obviously those are, some massive players that they're going to be missing. And Scotland, obviously, I think they're 5 on the bounce in Six Nations. So obviously in great form and, an epic performance against England. I was really chuffed for them to go and win. Awesome to see Scottish born and bred Duan van der Merwe busting himself over the try line there to score his first one in internationals. But I mean, it's tough. It's really tough to look past the Scotland team and on the minus. And initially, I was quite set. I said anything like over 5 or 6. I mean, I'm going to be on the Wales plus here, just because I think generally these games are quite tight. But geez, I'm finding it really tough to back Wales, just given who they're missing. And I mean, yes, they did beat Ireland, and credit to them. And there was a bit of obviously the red card saga, but and they got the win at the end of the day, so I can't take anything away from them. But I mean, it's just, these Scottish guys are playing good rugby, and a lot of them are coming from, solid teams, Exeter, Edinburgh, teams that have been informed. So yeah, for me, I'm not going to take a bet on this at this current handicap. I'll maybe look in play, but I would lean on the Scotland -4 here.
Interesting. Well, you're in the live chat game. Scotland 11-20, which is, of course, a winning margin bet. And the interesting one, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people here on the 1-12 as well. Certainly Six Nations games. In fact, we got someone coming in with the 1-12 straight underneath that. T. Kawenga coming in 1-12 Scotland. Neil, where are you sitting on this game? I must say, I'm actually firmly in the Scottish camp here. I hear what Jordan says about the Wales team, and I think someone said, can Scotland lift themselves again? I believe they can. I think it was Brady who said he thinks they're going to ride the wave here. And I tend to agree with that. I think that Scotland will have a good game. I like the minus. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Brent, I think when this sort of started out at a 3.5, I think I even saw 2.5 at 0.75. I was definitely sort of siding with the Scots on that one. I didn't get any money down. But now that it's drifted out to a 5.5, Wales do tend to keep it close against the Scots. And I did a bit of intel before the show, and I see that only twice in the last 16 fixtures between the two sides have Scotland actually beaten a handicap of more than 5.5 points. So that just sort of shows that, disregarding previous form and results, that these two sides generally do keep it very close when they play each other. With a bit of sort of ominous weather about, points line a bit low, I think that Wales will cover the spread. But am I going to put the house down? Probably not. And I will end up probably signing with the Scotland 1-12 at the best price I can get. I just feel like that offers quite a nice band of 12 points. I don't think Wales will win the game. I think Scotland will have enough in the tank to sort of grind out a home victory.
Yeah, I also think that 1-12 is going to be pretty popular. I imagine you'll get around about 16 to 10. Best price on that. We'll stay with you there, Neil, and talk total points. I mean, this on the face of it looks pretty low, 39.5. But if we look at England and Wales last week, they had 17 points in total. So what are you thinking here? It's difficult to go. I must say, it's difficult to go overs in a Six Nations game, Scotland at home.
Yeah, Brent, this is absolutely no confidence from me. I think this is pretty spot on from the bookmakers. Maybe if the bookies drifted towards the 43.5, I'd lean unders. With that in mind, if they drifted towards the 36.5, I'd lean overs. So with a smack bang in the middle, 39.5, I'm happy to leave this one alone and spend my money elsewhere.
Before we move on to the next game, Jordan, anything on the points there for you? You're on mute, Jordan.
Sorry about that. Maybe just a play on penalties or something like that, on over penalties. Generally, games with Wales tend to go over for penalties. And I think, obviously, Scotland having won in England, they're not really necessarily looking for a bonus point win in any game other than Italy. So I think they'll just take their wins as they come. So, I mean, either an unders tries or an over penalties, depending on what the quote is. So I'll definitely be on the lookout for that.
Well, let's go back up to Neil for the next game. This game is, of course, taking place in Dublin, and we've got a pretty stable handicap here. Ireland plus 2.5 against France. France very impressive last week in beating Italy, and they are starting to look like the real deal. Everybody's been watching the show for a few years and being good for the game. Well, no, I absolutely love the French, but I can see I'm going to be annoyed come World Cup because I'm not going to get a very big price on them the way they're playing. 2.5 points, Ireland at home. I mean, I suppose you normally say you back the Irish at home, but the way France are playing, Neil, I'm leaning towards the French here.
Yeah, Brent, I think you've summed it up pretty well. Literally a red-hot French team. They've never been in better form in, I think, the entire rugby history. And they've just sort of eradicated that inconsistencies which has plagued them in the past. I've never seen a French side so clinical in my life. I've never seen a French side so dominant at the breakdown, dominant at the collisions, dominant at the set piece. Don't miss kicks and goal, make correct decisions on the field. They know when to exit. They know when to attack. They're not sort of looking for 100-meter tries at every sort of opportunity. They're not just looking for, they'll break the line. They don't just look for a chip over the fullback to score on the first phase. They'll get tackled, set it up, and then look to capitalize. They're playing smart rugby. They're playing intelligent rugby. I think that Galtie's done a fantastic job in sort of bringing the best out of this French group. However, they do probably stand their toughest test, I believe, of the Six Nations when they go to Dublin on Sunday. Reason being, there's inclement weather predicted for Ireland, and there's nothing more than the Irish love to sort of get stuck in the rain and the cold, and they would love nothing more than sort of an extravagant French side coming to their shores. So I think with that in mind, yes, if you can probably get a generous plus on Ireland. However, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to back this French side until they let me down. So I'm quite happy to take that France -2.5.
But United going against Irish. I think I'm going to go watch with one of my Irish mates as well. It's always good fun that way. Jordan, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I think Neil hit the nail on the head there. Like this French team are really clinical. They're not only classy and slick and great with the way the ball moves through the hands, but they're also really clinical. Like they've got guys that can kick their goals. They play in the right area of the field, and they just play a really nice brand of rugby. I even feel that they didn't really even get out of second gear against Italy, and I think that they're really going to turn it up on Sunday. I think the game's on Sunday afternoon. I think the weather will be a bit of a leveler, and in that sense, it does pull away a little bit from the confidence. But I think this French team will be galvanized, and they'll be looking to really put foot to throat here, and lay their mark on the Six Nations tournament. So I mean at 2.5, I'm also firmly in the French camp, but I'd also maybe look for France 1-12.
Right, and I forgot to make a ban on this one, but there is a points line out already, which is good. And here, Jordan, we got 37.5 points. I already heard you mention conditions are not going to be great. 37.5.
So it really depends on the conditions, but I mean, obviously the French play great rugby, but honestly, I'd go unders on that.
Right, with the unders there, 37.5. Do you have anything in closing
really
points?
Take an unders at 37, but yes,
it is tough. I know one man who can do it, and he's called Henrik Swart. He'll take unders on anything if the conditions and the ref are right. Neil, anything to comment on the points before we wrap up Six Nations and move on to your bread and butter?
One speculative bet, which we'll definitely see a couple chips my way, is most tries as a draw between France and Ireland. I've seen 3-1. I think that's a cracking price for sort of some pretty bad weather predicted. If both teams score 1, if both teams score 2, I think I would price that probably at about 18-10. So I'm getting it about 3-1. I think I've even saw 3.2-1. That's a cracking price. We'll definitely see some small money this weekend.
Yeah, those are sort of bets you can't get too carried away with. But if there's a bit of value there, you go for it. I went for something similar in the Curry Cup final there. But we'll come back for our Six Nations best bets. But let's move on, and we'll talk a little bit of Gallagher Premiership. I just want to have a look up here. Yeah, I'm going to open up the odds. I'm not going to bring them on the screen there. But I'll tell you what, guys, we'll run through the games here. I know you guys have got some fancies, and you've got a great record in the Premiership. If you don't fancy anything, then don't worry too much about that game. But if you like anything, let us know. And Neil, we'll start with you. Gloucester against the Bristol Bears. This is Friday night. I think the Bears let a few people down last week. And I see Gloucester here plus 7.5 at home against the Bristol Bears. Bears back.
On the road against Gloucester. Gloucester playing quite an expansive brand of rugby, down to their third choice fly half with Billy Twelvetrees in the jumper. Obviously, missing players due to international duty. I think Gloucester are lucky that it's been announced that the Premiership is going to be ring fenced. I think that they were in serious danger of going down to the Championship, and that is quite a knock to a team which probably 2 years ago were pushing those playoff spots, and there's even sort of a muster of maybe a shock victory in a semi-final could take them to Twickenham for that Premiership final. So I think they're a team seriously on the down. They've sort of lost their identity as a side. They've always been quite a side which plays an attacking brand of rugby. So they play quite open rugby, but they just seem to always get outscored. So they might score 27 points in the game, which in the cold in England you would expect to win the game, but then the other team will just happen to score more points. And I think that until they sort that out, until they sort out their set piece issues, until they sort out their goal kicking issues, until they realize what sort of brand of rugby they want to play, you'll see when they get penalties, there's just so much indecision amongst the team. No one knows if they're going to kick to the corner, take a scrum when they're on the line, going to take a tap and go for the points. There's just no sort of cohesion at the moment. So I think that with the lack of direction at the moment, it's really tough to side with Gloucester. That being said, I was quite lucky that Jordan did alert me to the -3.5, -4.5 early days. I was more than happy to take that. I got Bears at 0.55 and a very nice double with extra Chiefs at 0.28, I think it was, just shaping it to slightly under evens. So I was very happy just to lay quite a big stake there. However, at the current lines, I think you can get 8.5, 9.5. It is tough to see Bristol cover the spread without Brandra and co. And they sort of, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bristol beat it. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gloucester beat the spread. I think this is pretty well set in the upper 8, upper 9 region.
Right, we'll go to Jordan now. Just welcome to Brady, who's joined us in the live chat. Brady, our Frenchman living in the UK, they're quite close to Twickenham, so we'll get a weather report from him on the Good for the Game forum closer to the big match on Saturday. Gloucester over 18.5 points is his score. Jordan, I gather that you were leaning towards Bristol Bears on the early handicap. What do you think of the current line?
Current line, I'd still go with the Bears. Gloucester are leaky. And I just, Bears, as Neil often says, he's a big fan of the bounce back. And I think Bears are going to bounce back hard. They've been really good on the road. And I think they're going to be hungry, even without Radradra and Luatua. They're going to be hungry for 5 points here after losing at home to Sale. They're going to go for the bonus point. I think they'll get it. The weather's going to be clear. It will be cold, but it's going to be clear. I don't think they'll score many points. Bristol's defense is solid as well. I would confidently take the -8. I would have capped this about 12 or 13.
12 or 13. So Bristol, a confident call there for Jordan. Jordan, we're going to stay with you, but first we're going to welcome Dave watching on Facebook. Dave, good to have you. Looking forward to your weather updates in Dublin on Sunday as well. Jordan, the next game is the Sale Sharks against Bath Rugby. Here we got the Sale Sharks double-digit favourites, -11.5.
So here, two teams I call horrifically. I can never get them right, and now they're playing against each other. I took Bath +14 2 weeks ago against Bristol upon some team news, and that ended up 48-3 to Bristol, so I got that one horribly wrong. But this week again, Sale have made 10 changes to last week's team that beat the Bears, actually. It only includes 4 Dupree brothers. Oh, not Dupree brothers, just 4 Duprees, all in the same team. I took +14, Bath +14 early doors, just basically on team announcements. But it's really tough to back this Bath team with a lot of confidence. But Sale also don't really enjoy beating the minus spread. So, it's one of those that I took based on the fact that Sale also have changed their team, and I think Bath are maybe due a game. Their team on paper is solid. I think it's it must be something in their head, something that just needs to click, and hopefully this week's their game. So at the current line, I think it's +10. I'd be on the Bath +10, but smalls.
Right, let's go to you for that game, Neil. I did see Jordan's tweet earlier in the week, and I think you posted on the forum as well, the +14.5 Bath. What do you think their current lines?
No, Brent, when I saw this sort of big double-digit spread, not really moving midweek, I really targeted this game as something I would look sort of at 2 o'clock today for team news to come out. As soon as I saw that Sale made 10 changes to the side, Bath kept much of a similar side. Yes, they are missing internationals. However, when I see that Rob Dupree gets named at fly-half for Sale, that's worth at least 5 points in itself. More than happy to take Bath from the spread here. I loaded the +14.5, and I'd be more than happy to take the +10.5. I can't see Sale beating this minus. Sale, as Jordan pointed out, they don't like minuses. They're like the Stormers at Newlands. They just don't beat minuses. The spread for this game could be -1, and they still somehow would not beat the spread. So, yeah, with that in mind, I'm fully aboard the Bath train. I'm a big believer in a comeback, especially in a tournament as professional as the English Prem. The coaches are too qualified. There's too much money on the line. Bath have too much quality in their side. I don't know how Ben Spence is chilling playing for Bath. He's probably the best scrum off by a mile in the English Premiership, and maybe bar Harry Randall. And they've got enough quality. Zach Mercer's playing good rugby. He's off to Montpellier soon. So I think that this Bath plus is golden.
Excellent. Olaf's actually watching on Twitter, and he also has a bit of a laugh there about Rob. It's funny how there's certain players that as a punter, you just can't back a team when that player is in a certain position. I'm a little bit like that, I hate to say, with Tim Sweel playing there for Province. It's one of the reasons why I was on the Sharks in the semi-final there. Let's stay with you then, Neil, and go on to the next game. Harlequins up against the Leicester Tigers. This takes place Saturday, 6 o'clock South African time. And here we got the Quins, who I think have been playing some pretty decent rugby. They're minus 10.5 against the Tigers.
Yeah, Brent, anyone who sort of watched me give my picks before now, I'm a huge Quins fan. I always do look to back them on the spread because they can sometimes be underrated by the bookies, especially when they play at home, but at the Stoop. But just with this particular cap, Tigers have been in great form. I'm been super impressed with Jasper Wiese for the Tigers. He was playing great rugby at the Cheetahs, but now he's gone across to the UK and he's just completely elevated his game. He's probably in running for the top 5 loose forwards in the competition to date so far. Tigers are just playing great rugby at the moment. And I say that not necessarily on their results, but just how they performed against the spread recently. So when I'm getting a near double-digit spread for Tigers, yes, it's away from home, but no supporters at the Stoop. Yeah, I'm going to be more than happy to take that Tigers on the plus. Probably won't be the biggest best of the weekend, but I'm quite happy sitting there. And I'll probably also look to take Harlequins 1-12.
Right, so Tigers on the plus and possibly Harlequins 1-12. Jordan, your thoughts on that one?
It's hard to go against my man Marcus Smith after he did us. He actually wasn't on the field for too long last week, but him and his team covered the spread nicely last week. And Quins have, to be honest, they've earned the spread. They don't often get double-digit minus spreads in their favor. As Neil said, they're often underrated by the books, but there's often a reason why they are underrated. And but obviously they've managed to keep their team together with a couple of players pulling out of the English squad due to not wanting to be in the bubble for family reasons. So they do have a pretty, set and solid team and squad. But as Neil said, Tigers have been playing some great rugby, particularly the Saffers there, like Jasper Wiese. I would lean on the plus 10, but it's not one. I don't really like going against Quins, especially after how well they've done for me. So yeah, I mean, I probably won't see a bet from me this game at the current lines.
Right, well, Exeter Chiefs, the next game is exactly the same line, but here we've got the Chiefs, the home team. Well, once again, the home team, much like the Quins, they're minus 10.5, Jordan.
So this is a game that's already seen some money from me. I took Exeter minus 10 against Irish. I just think if you zoom out and you take a macro look at this game, you've got the European champions and Premiership champions against London Irish, who are horseshit. There's no other way to describe them. But in their defense, they've got a solid team that hasn't changed. And they've got Augustine Creevy. They've got a tight pack. Their pack has been doing a good job. And, they're 2 games on the trot. So I think this game is a bit of an insult to Exeter. Yes, they haven't been in the best of form, and the Simmons brothers may have been struggling to lay their mark in recent matches, but they've still come out with a W. And I think this is a game where I think they can catch up on Bristol's last week. They can come get 5 points at home at Sandy Park. Teams also struggle to score points at Sandy Park, so I'm backing 4 tries from Exeter, and I mean I can't see many points from Irish. So just in that sense, I don't see more than 10 from Irish, and I see 4 tries, and Simmons is the best kicker in the Premiership, so you're likely to get about 26. Take first scoring play to be an Exeter try or by an Exeter forward. First try Exeter forward. Take the Exeter minus. Take the Exeter minus 16 as well, I think, and maybe the minus 22 at 4-1. Because I think Exeter are going to put Irish, dish them some humble pie.
Excellent. Well, there's no doubt about one thing. Jordan is going to be heavily involved in that Exeter game. I think there were 3 markets available that he didn't mention he was getting involved in that game. So some nice confidence coming through there. Neil, this game for you?
No, Brent. Just to sort of touch on what Jordan said, whenever you see a spread for Exeter, you always got to. I don't think about how many points Exeter are going to score. I always think about how many they're going to concede. Exeter don't concede points at Sandy Park. The spread could be 20.5, but the opposing side will be lucky to score 10 points. So when I see a spread of 10 points, and I expect a points line of roughly 44.5, there's just no way that Irish will sort of cover that point spread. I'll be looking to sort of take an under 1.5 Irish tries at over evens. I think that'll definitely be dished up. I'm pretty confident that we'll get it at about 12 to 10, 13 to 10. I think that also once Exeter go up by, say, more than 5 points, Irish won't win the game by sort of kicking their threes or kicking to the corner. So that also helps the unders on the Irish. So I'm gonna look to load. If I can get a 14.5 Irish, I'll be happy to take that unders on that. I'll also be looking at an Exeter halftime full time. I expect that to sort of come out at about maybe 5 to 10 if I'm lucky, and I'll probably load that in a nice double that I sort of a higher points line unders on that in a different game. And I think that Exeter is definitely the play here at the -10. I think that's a cracking cap, and I think that the books have missed a trick here.
Excellent. Well, I'll be getting involved in that one as well. And of course, going to be putting together the Good for the Game newsletter tomorrow morning, looking for a best bet. Great start to the year we had, although we did come back down to earth last week with Ireland costing us a double. I think that red card pretty much sealed our fate there in the first half. But if you haven't subscribed to our free newsletter, then do go down below the video and you can click the subscribe button there. It's pretty quick to sign up. And also go to the Good for the Game forum where guys like my guests here, when they fancy something strong, they post it on there and they post it on their Twitter feeds. So don't miss out, because one thing we do know is that lines move very quickly. Let's stay with you though, Neil. The Northampton Saints up against the Newcastle Falcons. And here the line I've got at Sunbet is -5.5 Saints.
Yeah, Brent, I'm a big believer in backing a form side. Saints have completely turned the corner. They've dished up 3 straight results on against spreads. They've covered the spread in their last 3 games. They really haven't been hit too hard by sort of international duty. Yes, they've lost a couple of players, but they've still got sort of the core mix of their side there. They've managed to sort of get some confidence back in the team. There's a lot more chemistry flowing. Whereas when you look at Newcastle, yes, Newcastle are a great side, but they really love to play in sort of the appalling conditions, keeping it close amongst their forward pack. If you watch their backs don't offer an awful lot. I'm not a big fan of their 10 and 15. Brett Cannon, I forget the 15's name now. They don't offer too much to their backs out wide. They aren't too inspiring. So if Newcastle don't sort of get that ascendancy, which they do give in their home games amongst the forward pack, then they do sort of struggle as a side. Where Saints, on the other hand, they do have a bit of creativity in the midfield, and I expected them to cover the spread quite comfortably. I've taken Saints -4.5, and I am quite confident on that. And I've also taken about an hour ago, I took some Saints halftime, full time at about 7 to 10. I think this will cover with ease.
Right, Jordan, what are your thoughts on that one?
I was just thinking now, how great would it be to watch Newcastle Falcons play against Southland Stags in Southland? I think that would be a points line, even money points line of about 29.5. And I'd be all in on the unders. Look, Falcons are a tough team to call. Like, they've covered most of their spreads this season, and they've been seriously impressive. Yeah, they are missing a couple of guys to international duty, some of their top players. And they're not exactly, they don't exactly inspire confidence, but, they're nuggety, they're plucky, they'll hang around, they won't give up, that's for sure. And I think, they kind of potentially see a bit of an opportunity here. They realize that they're mid-table and one win kind of takes them into the top 5, top 4, top 6. So I really think they're going to target this game. I think Saints have been good in the last 3 weeks, but I don't think Saints are trustworthy. At this cap, I'm not going to take a bet. I find it just too tough to go against the Falcons and too tough to trust the Saints. But Neil, for your sake, I hope they come through halftime, full time, and cover the cap.
Yeah, I see Olaf also likes the -4.5 Saints there. But let's stay with you, Jordan, for the final game of the weekend, or the final Premiership game. The Worcester Warriors up against the Wasps. And here at Sunbet, we've got the Warriors +2.5 against the Wasps.
+2.5, wow. Look, I think Warriors at home are a different beast. And I think they also haven't lost too many players to international duty. But in the same respect, I think we also need to remember who the Wasps are and where they were at the end of last season. They were finalists of the Premiership, and there was a reason for that. And I think, look, they haven't been kicking, but I can't back Worcester on a +2 against the Wasps. For me it's a cap that should be around 7 or 8. So yeah, I've taken a little bit of Wasps on the board in an accumulator, and I would definitely take Wasps -2, and I still might closer to the time, just waiting for teams tomorrow.
And of course, that's the Sunday game. So depending on how your weekend goes, either chasing hard or you're looking to capitalize, and certainly going to get involved. Neil, your thoughts on the final Premiership game of the weekend?
Brent, I think I've mentioned it on the show before. Jacob Umanga, Wasps fly half. As soon as the temperature drops below 18 degrees Celsius, playing hates playing rugby in anything slightly cooler temps. He's seriously derailed this Wasps' chances of getting to the playoffs. However, with that said, whenever I get a spread of 2.5, 3.5 is different because that's more than obviously a penalty. If I'm getting a spread of 2.5 for the champions from last year, playing against probably one of the worst sides, well, they are in the top 3 worst sides in the comp. They just simply don't have the money that the other unions have. At no fault of their own. They've got Alan Solomons heading up rugby there. I strongly dislike him. I think he's 20 years past his sell-by date. He's bringing in players with just absolutely no experience, no quality, nothing. I do understand they're on a tight budget, but they just go shopping in the wrong places and they waste their budget terribly. They've got Francois Herchard on big money who's doing absolutely nothing up there. He's an horrendous 9 in sort of Northern Hemisphere conditions. I think he always worries about his Lamborghini and getting snow on it and getting hail on it and all that. I think that's his biggest concern for that. So for me, just Warriors, there's just not much confidence there. They've got a great captain in Ted Hill. I think he's been capped once by England in about 2016 or 2017. Youngster captaining the side, superb player. But when I'm getting the Wasps, as I said, finalists from last season, traveling to Worcester, they'll be targeting this game. They'll know that they have to get a win to sort of get their season back up and running. Yeah, I'll be more than happy to take Wasps -2.5. I think that's a cracking play.
Nice, strong call there. And the way you were lambasting a couple of those players reminded me of our good friend Couch Critic. He used to have a real go at players sometimes on the show. And Couch, we know you do your own show in Afrikaans at 8 o'clock on a Thursday. But looking forward to having you back on again, even if you just pop on sometime, a guest to give us a couple of good hooker tips for the weekend. That brings us to the end of the Premiership. Guys, I see there's one Pro 14 game priced up. I don't know if it's definitely going ahead. It's the Glasgow Warriors against Benetton. And here we've got -11.5. The Warriors. Anything on that quickly before we touch on a bit of Super Rugby? Jordan?
I think Neil said the game is cancelled due to a frozen pitch.
Yeah, it's been postponed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's also postponed, so we won't spend any more time on that. And let's talk then a little bit about, before we come on to our best bets, let's talk a little bit about Super Rugby AU because, Jordan, I think they've priced up the fixtures for next week. Anything stand out for you there in the early doors?
Yeah, I think it's tough to look past the classes in the first week. Obviously, you don't want to go too strong on anything because you don't really know what can happen. So in that Reds Waratahs game, I mean, I think Reds missing Liam Wright. He's out for 10 weeks or something, so that's a big loss for them. I'm probably not going to get involved right now in the Reds Tars game. I think it could be tight, but I'd lean on the Tars plus. But I think the real value comes in the Force plus against the Brumbies. They played a trial match last week, or a few days ago actually, and Brumbies managed to pip at 29-28. But I think the Force have made some really good signings, quite a few Argentinians. And I think the Force will actually win the game. So I think there was +9.5 available. So I took some of that. And even at +7, I'd take that. And yeah, I mean, I can see the Brumbies easily. I can see the Brumbies losing this game. Definitely. They're overrated.
Nice, confident pick there. And just before Neil comes in, I've got a funny feeling he's going to rubber stamp it. Obviously, next week, we'll be starting to cover Super Rugby on the show in a bit more detail. We'll have Super Rugby AU games in the week. After that, of course, we've got the New Zealand game starting. So we've got some cracking rugby coming up. Neil, you're going to rubber stamp that Force bet, aren't you?
Yeah, Brent, I don't really know what Jordan was saying when he alluded to the fact that he doesn't want to sort of put too much money on opening round games. I think that this Force Plus is absolutely golden. If you can get 8.5, if you can get 7.5, yeah, stick a big chunk, a big wad on that. I took a big chunk at 9.5. I think that's a cracker. As Jordan says, I don't think the Brumbies are actually going to even win this game. I think that the Sea of Blue is going to swarm around Perth and really sort of drive home this advantage. They've recruited some top quality Jaguares players. Couple that with a bit of the wise heads in Richard Kahu and Dave Carney. I can't see anything past sort of Force covering the spread. I think it's quite disrespectful to the Force that they're getting more than a converted try to start up with on their home turf against sort of a Brumby side, which does sort of start the season quite inconsistently with that. They relied big time on their set piece, but I think that having a couple of Argentinian brutes in the pack will definitely nullify sort of that impact that the Brumbies will have. So I'm quite happy to take this Force plus quite strong as well. And then just alluding to the Reds Waratahs game, I was hoping for sort of a 4.5 Reds and then to side with the home side there. At 8.5, I think that's quite a big spread for an opening round game. Reds also don't like beating a minus handicap, as anyone who's punted on the Reds will know. So I probably will stick a couple small chips on the Waratahs and the plus, but not with a lot of confidence. I think that they will probably be at one of their weakest that they've ever fielded in an Australian tournament. So that's also to bear that in mind. So yeah, if I don't end up taking Waratahs plus for small, I'll probably stay out and just look for a total points line.
Okay, Cerebral Assassin, quoting Oracle there, they got the wrong favourite, and that sounds like they do. And I wonder if we're going to see a return of the Oracle at some stage during Super Rugby. I must say 2 things I'm going to do after the show. I'm going to back the Force, and I'm going to block my calendar for 5-1 next Friday. Make sure that I don't have any meetings pop up, because it sounds like I'm going to be heavily involved in this opening round game. Just while you guys are on the show, just before we get into bets, anything on Super Rugby Theoria, the New Zealand version yet? I see they got Highlanders, Crusaders. Crusaders obviously firm favourites for that, but an interesting game as well. Hurricanes against the Blues, Neil. Blues away from home, slight underdogs.
Yeah, Brent, I actually staked the Blues today. I took them at even money with GG. I was more than happy to take Blues in a choice game. I just don't trust the halfback pairing for the Canes. I think that the Blues will have enough quality in the forward pack to sort of oversee this. In previous seasons, the Blues have looked better on paper, but they've lacked that winning mentality. They just haven't known how to sort of close out games and win games. Hurricanes, on the other hand, I think they're in for a big surprise of Super Rugby Aotearoa. I think they will struggle. I think that they might finish bottom. It'll be between them and the Highlanders to finish bottom. I sort of just tipped the Highlanders not to finish bottom against the Canes just because they're quite a different beast at 4 spar under the roof. So with that in mind, I think the Blues will be right up for this game. First game of the season. No real travel worries to speak about. They'll be coming in fresh. There won't be too much of a home ground advantage. So I think at even money, the Blues is a cracker.
Well, if I didn't know any better, I think I'm dreaming, You told me 10 years ago that my 2 favourite sides, France and the Blues, will be talked up on a show like this all the time. I never would have believed you. It's great to hear. And Jordan, what do you think? Anything early for you on the New Zealand Super Rugby?
I also fancy the Blues, but games are still 2 weeks away, and I think they do have some trials this weekend, some practice games. So we'll see how those go. It'll also be interesting to see the teams that actually, the starting 15s that actually get fielded, because some of the guys in the trial games, are randoms from the Mitre 10. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Kiwi rugby is, as bad as one team can look, the guys know how to play rugby. So I'm always hesitant to go strongly against a specific team. And that's why I tend to, favor the plus in New Zealand rugby, because all these guys can play. So yeah, I mean, the initial interest would be on the Landers, and then probably the Blues. But I'd like to get a plus in play.
Right. Well, let's go on to best bets, and Jordan, and we'll stick with you. Let's get your best bets for the weekend.
Cool. So I'll give a Six Nations one, and then I'll give a non-Six Nations one. In the Six Nations, my best bet would be Italy on the first half handicap, the best that you can get. So let's assume 17 or 18. I'll take that. Unless you can get like an Italy over 2.5 first half points, but that's unlikely. So probably Italy plus 17 or 18. And then I also like a separate bet, Luke Cowan-Dickey to score there. Sorry, I forgot to mention it earlier. He's the English hooker, and he loves a meat pie. And I think England will kick for the corner a lot. So I like him to score at about 7 to 10, although I took him at 9 to 10. He's shortened since then, but I still like it. And then outside of the Six Nations, so I've already taken Bears, and if it still was at the original line, I would say that would be my best bet. But for now, I'm going to go extra Chiefs minus 10.
Right.
Against Irish.
In the Gallagher Premiership. Thanks for that. Just a reminder, you can find Jordan and Andrew on Twitter at Son of a Punt. There's the address there. And, of course, Thoughts on Sports as well. We're going to get his best bets now. Neil?
Yeah, Brent, I'll just also break it up. Like Jordan said, in the Six Nations, I like Italy over 6.5 full-time points. I've just spotted that right now as I've been looking. I think that's a cracker. A handicap bet, I probably like France. I've seen -1.5 at 0.75 or 0.73. I like that. I think France will win the game, and if they win the game, they'll beat the -1.5. And then just going down to the Premiership, my best bet, I've actually changed my mind with going on the show. I'm going to side with the Wasps -2.5 here. I can't see the Wasps not winning away at 6 ways. And probably second is also, I'm quite strong on Exeter Chiefs to beat the minus there.
Right, so those are the boys' best bets. I'm going to be giving a bit of thought to mine. I must say, I do like quite a lot. I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. I like your Premiership bets. I'm more of a follower than someone who makes his own decisions on that. But certainly the Six Nations, well, I do like the French. I like the Scots. And I'm quite leaning towards that Italy half-time handicap as well, or possibly looking at an overs 1.5 points there for the Italians. But thanks, everyone. First of all, thanks to my guests, Neil and Jordan. Guys, excellent having you on the show. Real quality, as always. And also to the guys who join us in the live chat. Always a pleasure to have your thoughts and bets as well. Neil, thanks a lot, man. Have a cracking weekend, and we'll chat on Twitter and on the forum.
No, thanks, Brent, for having me. Always a pleasure to talk some rugby, and I wish all the boys on the show a successful punting weekend ahead. If you have any questions, you can pop me a message on Twitter, and we can chat some rugby. And
now, Jordan, just correct me if I'm wrong. Have you had a haircut since last week? And if so, I hope it isn't because I said that people were saying you look like my brother, right?
I think, Brent, actually, it's after about an hour after that video, I was off to the hairdresser. But it was already planned, so no disrespect to you, Brent. To be compared, to have a lid as nice and luscious as yours is a compliment.
Excellent.
But yeah, thanks for having me, and we're looking forward to another successful betting weekend.
Excellent. And I'm sure the word brother would be replaced by son. Most people agree with that as well. But gents, thanks very much. Thanks to everyone watching in the live chat. Des Simons, good to have you on board as well. And yeah, but a cracking show. You can catch it as a podcast as well. Or of course, if you missed it live, you can catch it on YouTube. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week where we'll start introducing more Super Rugby.